Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived. He was sitting in the command chair of the USS Liberty, a small exploration ship that had been studying the moons of Jupiter for the past 3 months. The coffee was terrible, like always, but it kept him awake during the long shifts in deep space. His crew of 20 was running their usual scans when the communication officer suddenly looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Kelly Wright. "It's not from Earth. The signal is coming from outside our solar system." Jake set down his coffee cup. In his 15 years of space service, he had never received an alien message nobody had. Humanity had been alone in the galaxy as far as they knew. They had found ruins on Mars and some strange artifacts on distant moons, but never any living aliens. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The screen flickered and showed a creature that made Jake's blood run cold. It had gray skin, 4 arms and eyes like black stones. When it spoke, the computer translated its words into English. "Primitive humans of the third planet. I am Commander Vextar of the Korthak Empire. Your species has been marked for conquest. You have 72 of your hours to surrender completely. If you refuse, we will destroy every human in existence. We have done this to 600 other species. You cannot resist us. Submit or die." The message ended. Jake stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His hands were shaking slightly. He had always known this day might come, but he had hoped it never would. "Get me Admiral Lisa Barnes at Earth Defense Command," he told Kelly. "Emergency priority." While they waited for the connection, Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, an alien fleet was coming to destroy everything he had ever known. His wife Susan was back on Earth. His 2 children, Mike and Amy, were in school in Colorado. They had no idea that death was traveling toward them at faster than light speed. The connection came through after 10 minutes. Admiral Barnes appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had commanded Earth's small space fleet for 8 years. Jake had served under her before and respected her greatly. "Jake, we got your message. How reliable is this transmission?" she asked. "It came through our deep space receivers, Admiral. The signal was strong and clear. Whoever sent it has better technology than us." Barnes nodded grimly. "We've been picking up energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Something big is coming our way. Get back to Earth as fast as you can. We're calling an emergency meeting of all ship captains." The trip back to Earth took 18 hours. Jake spent most of that time thinking about what they were facing. Humanity had 12 warships, the largest being the USS Guardian, with a crew of 300. They had some orbital defense platforms around Earth and a few missile bases on the moon. Against an empire that had conquered 600 species, it seemed hopeless. When Jake arrived at Earth Defense Command, the situation room was full of worried faces. All 12 ship captains were there, along with the top military leaders and scientists. Admiral Barnes stood at the front of the room with a grim expression. "The alien fleet will reach Earth in 48 hours, she announced. "Our deep space scanners show 200 ships, each one larger than our biggest vessel. We need options." General Robert Hayes, the head of Earth's ground forces, spoke up. "We have nuclear weapons. We could try to. Nuclear weapons won't work against ships that travel between stars," interrupted Dr. Patrick Lee, the head of advanced research. "They have energy shields that can probably stop anything we throw at them." Jake listened to the discussion with growing despair. Every option seemed to lead to the same conclusion: humanity was doomed. Then Dr. Lee said something that caught everyone's attention. "There is one possibility," Lee said quietly. "Project Defiance." Admiral Barnes frowned. "Patrick, that project was classified beyond top secret. How do you—" "Admiral, we're about to be extinct," Lee interrupted. "Classification levels don't matter anymore." Barnes was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Tell them." Lee stood up and activated a holographic display. It showed a sleek warship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was smaller than their current ships, but looked incredibly advanced. "For the past 5 years, we've been working on reverse engineering technology from the alien ruins we found on Mars," Lee explained. We've also developed some new innovations of our own. The result is the USS Retribution. It's been built in secret at our facility near Saturn. Captain Alex Stone, a veteran pilot in his 30s, studied the display. What makes it special? The hull is made from quantum-folded metal that's nearly indestructible. The engines use exotic matter that can generate enormous amounts of power. And the weapons, well, they work on principles that most of our physicists don't fully understand yet. Is it operational? Barnes asked. Yes, but it's completely untested. We've run simulations, but we've never fired the weapons at full power. The theoretical output is, well, it's enormous, but the ship might not survive using them. Jake felt a small spark of hope for the first time since receiving the alien message. What do you need? A crew of 50 volunteers, Lee replied. The ship's systems are so advanced that they require enhanced human reflexes and processing power. We've developed a serum that can boost human capabilities, but it's dangerous. Some crew members might not survive the enhancement process. The room was silent. Everyone understood what Lee was asking. 50 people would have to risk their lives for a chance to save humanity. And even if they survived the enhancement, they would be flying into battle against impossible odds. I'll volunteer, said Captain Stone without hesitation. So will I, added Jake. Within an hour, they had their 50 volunteers. Jake wasn't selected for the crew, but Stone was chosen as the ship's captain. The volunteers were taken immediately to the medical facility for the enhancement procedures. As Jake watched them leave, he wondered if he would ever see any of them again. Outside, the sun was setting over Earth. It might be one of the last sunsets humanity would ever see. In less than 2 days, they would know if Project Defiance could save them all. War Master Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Render, watching the small yellow star grow larger on his screens. This was his 100th conquest, and he expected it to be as easy as all the others. The humans had primitive technology and only a handful of warships. His fleet of 200 vessels could destroy their entire civilization in a matter of hours. The Void Render was 3 kilometers long and carried a crew of 5,000 Korthak warriors. Its weapons could crack a planet's surface, and its shields had never been penetrated by enemy fire. Behind it followed the pride of the Korthak Empire, heavy cruisers, battle destroyers, and support vessels that had conquered worlds across the galaxy for 3,000 years. War Master, said his second-in-command, Captain Morgeth, our scouts report the humans have sent a single ship to meet us. It's much smaller than our smallest escort vessel. Zethkar laughed, a sound like grinding stone. One ship? Are they surrendering or simply insane? Unknown, sir. The vessel is holding position in the asteroid field between the 4th and 5th planets. It appears to be waiting for us. Zethkar studied the tactical display. The human ship looked pathetic compared to his mighty fleet. He had destroyed entire armadas larger than humanity's combined space force. This would be over quickly. Meanwhile, Commander Alex Stone was trying not to think about the pain coursing through his body. The enhancement serum had worked, but the side effects were brutal. His reflexes were now 10 times faster than normal, and his mind could process information at superhuman speeds. However, his nervous system felt like it was on fire. Around him, the crew of the USS Retribution was going through similar agony. Navigation Officer Kelly Wright was plotting their position with mathematical precision that would have been impossible for an unenhanced human. Weapons Officer Dan Cooper was running system checks on equipment that operated beyond normal human comprehension. Sir, reported Chief Medical Officer Amy Davis, all crew members have successfully integrated with the ship's neural interface. We're operating at peak efficiency. Stone nodded, though the movement sent spikes of pain through his skull. The neural interface allowed the enhanced humans to control the ship's advanced systems with their thoughts alone. It was necessary, because the USS Retribution's technology was too complex for normal human operation. Dr. Patrick Lee's voice came through the communication system from Earth. Commander Stone, this is Dr. Lee. Final systems check shows everything is operational. The quantum cascade weapons are charged and ready. Remember, we don't know what will happen when you fire them at full power. Understood, Doctor, Stone replied. If we don't make it, tell Earth that we tried. You'll make it, Commander. You have to. Stone looked around his bridge. His crew of 50 had volunteered knowing they might not survive. They had families back on Earth, dreams and hopes for the future. Now they were humanity's last hope against an enemy that had never been defeated. Chief Engineer Ryan Phillips reported from the engine room. Captain, the exotic matter reactors are stable. We have enough power to fight for hours if needed. Good, Stone said. How long until the alien fleet arrives? 6 hours, sir. Stone used those 6 hours to prepare his crew for battle. They ran drills on the advanced weapon systems, practiced emergency procedures, and said their goodbyes to loved ones back on Earth. The communication delay meant their final messages would take time to reach home. Tactical Officer Ben Clark studied the approaching enemy fleet. Sir, they're maintaining a standard attack formation. It looks like they expect easy victory. Let them keep thinking that, Stone replied. The longer they underestimate us, the better our chances. Communications Officer Peter Johnson was monitoring alien transmissions. Captain, they're discussing us like we're already defeated. One of them called our ship amusing in its smallness. Stone smiled grimly. The Korthak Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for millennia. They had never faced an opponent with technology equal to or superior to their own. They were about to learn what humanity was truly capable of when pushed to the edge of extinction. Engineer Susan Martinez ran final checks on the defensive systems. The USS Retribution's shields used space-time distortion technology that created an almost impenetrable barrier around the ship. In theory, they could withstand the combined firepower of the entire Korthak fleet. In theory. Sir, reported sensor operator Tom Wilson, the enemy fleet is dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They'll be in weapon range in 30 minutes. Stone stood up from his command chair. The pain from the enhancement serum was finally starting to fade, replaced by a clarity of thought he had never experienced before. He could feel the ship around him through the neural interface as if the USS Retribution had become an extension of his own body. All stations, report ready status, he ordered. One by one, his crew reported that all systems were operational. The quantum cascade weapons were charged to full power. The shields were at maximum strength. The exotic matter reactors were running at optimal levels. Stone opened a communication channel to Earth. Admiral Barnes, this is Commander Stone. We are ready to engage the enemy. Barnes's voice came back after the short delay. Understood, Commander. The thoughts and prayers of every human are with you. Give them hell. Yes, ma'am. USS Retribution. Outly Stone closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were no longer ordinary humans. The enhancement had changed them into something more. Something capable of operating technology that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Ladies and gentlemen, he said quietly, today we find out if human ingenuity and determination can overcome 3,000 years of alien dominance. Whatever happens, we fight for Earth. We fight for our families. We fight for the future of humanity. The crew nodded silently. Outside, the Korthak fleet was taking battle positions. 200 warships against one. The odds were impossible, but Stone had never felt more ready for anything in his life. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. Warmaster Zethkar activated the main communication array as his fleet settled into battle formation around the tiny human vessel. The Void Render and its escort ships formed a perfect sphere of destruction, with the USS Retribution at the center. It was a formation the Korthak had used to intimidate countless species into surrender. Unknown human vessel, Zethkar's voice boomed across space. I am Warmaster Zethkar of the Korthak Empire. You are surrounded by the finest warriors in the galaxy. Your pathetic ship cannot hope to survive against our combined firepower. Surrender, immediately, and your death will be swift. Commander Stone looked at the tactical display showing the massive alien fleet surrounding his ship. Each Korthak vessel was at least 3 times larger than the USS Retribution. Their weapons were already charging, energy readings climbing to levels that could vaporize asteroids. Open a channel to all frequencies, Stone ordered communications, Officer Peter Johnson. I want every ship in their fleet to hear this." The channel opened. Stone stood up from his command chair, his enhanced reflexes making every movement precise and controlled. He could feel the neural interface connecting him to every system on the ship. "This is Commander Alex Stone of the United Earth Defense Force," he said calmly. "You have threatened our world and our people. We reject your terms completely. Leave our solar system immediately or face the consequences of your actions." The response from the Korthak fleet was immediate laughter. Dozens of alien voices mocked the human commander's defiance. They had heard similar brave words from hundreds of doomed species over the centuries. Zethkar's voice cut through the laughter. "Consequences? You command one small ship against our mighty armada. What consequences could you possibly threaten us with?" "You'll find out," Stone replied simply. "Last chance to leave peacefully." More laughter echoed across the communication channels. Zethkar had heard enough. "Destroy them," he ordered his fleet. 50 Korthak heavy cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams that could melt through solid rock converged on the USS Retribution from all directions. The space around the human ship exploded in brilliant, light as enough firepower to destroy a city struck their target. On the bridge of the Void Render, Zethkar watched with satisfaction. No ship in the galaxy could survive that much concentrated firepower. When the light faded, he expected to see nothing but glowing debris. Instead, the USS Retribution hung in space exactly where it had been before. Not a single mark showed on its hull. A shimmering barrier of distorted space surrounded the ship, the alien energy beams bending around it like water flowing around a stone. "Impossible," whispered Captain Morgath. "No shields can withstand that much power." Zethkar stared, in shock. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never seen defensive technology like this. The human ship had absorbed the combined firepower of 50 heavy cruisers without taking any damage at all. On the USS Retribution, Weapons Officer Dan Cooper monitored his systems with enhanced precision. "Shields holding at 98%. Sir, the space-time distortion is working perfectly." "Excellent," Stone replied. "Now it's our turn. Charge the quantum cascade weapons to full power." Chief Engineer Ryan Phillips reported from the engine room. "Exotic matter reactors at maximum. Output, Captain. All weapon systems ready to fire." Stone felt the ship's power building through the neural interface. The quantum cascade cannons were drawing energy directly from folded space-time itself. The amount of power flowing through the USS Retribution would have destroyed any normal vessel instantly. "Target the closest enemy formation," Stone ordered. "Fire when ready." The quantum cascade weapons charged with a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. Even through the ship's heavy shielding, the crew could feel the weapons, building to unimaginable power levels. "Weapons locked on target," Cooper reported. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. The USS Retribution fired. What emerged from the ship's weapons wasn't energy or projectiles in any conventional sense. The quantum cascade cannons fired controlled tiers in space-time that moved faster than light toward their targets. The beams were barely visible, appearing as slight distortions in space that bent starlight around them. The first beam struck a Korthak heavy cruiser directly amidships. The alien vessel didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist. One moment there was a 3-kilometer warship with a crew of 2,000. The next moment there was empty space, not even atomic debris left behind. The second beam erased another cruiser, then another. In the span of 5 seconds, 10 Korthak warships were completely removed from existence. On the Void Render, chaos erupted on the bridge. "Report!" Zethkar shouted. "What happened to Strike Group 7? "They're gone, sir," his sensor operator replied in a shaking voice. "No debris, no energy signature, no trace they ever existed. They've been deleted." Zethkar felt something he had never experienced in his long military career: fear. The human ship had weapons that operated beyond anything in Korthak science. They weren't just destroying his vessels, they were erasing them from reality. All ships, Focus fire on the human vessel. He ordered desperately. Maximum power, destroy it now. The entire Korthak fleet opened fire. 200 warships poured every weapon they had at the USS Retribution. The amount of energy released could have boiled Earth's oceans, but the human ship's shields held firm. The space-time distortion barrier deflected the alien attacks as if they were gentle rain. Meanwhile, the quantum cascade weapons fired again. 5 more Korthak ships vanished instantly. Then 10 more. The human ship moved through the alien formation like death incarnate, erasing everything it targeted. Tactical Officer Ben Clark reported calmly, "Sir, enemy formation is breaking apart. Multiple ships are attempting to retreat." "Don't let any escape," Stone ordered coldly. "They came here to commit genocide. Now they pay the price." The USS Retribution accelerated to impossible speeds, its exotic matter engines bending space around the ship. It caught the fleeing Korthak vessels and methodically eliminated them one by one. Engineer Susan Martinez monitored the power systems. "Captain, we're maintaining full power with no strain on the reactors. We can keep this up indefinitely." Stone nodded. Through the neural interface, he could feel every system on his ship working in perfect harmony. The USS Retribution had become the ultimate expression of human determination and ingenuity. It was humanity's answer to 3,000 years of alien tyranny. The battle continued for 37 minutes. When it ended, only one Korthak ship remained, the Void Render. Stone had deliberately spared the flagship so its crew could carry word of humanity's power back to their empire. "Warmaster Zethkar," Stone's voice came across the communication channel. "You came here expecting easy conquest. Instead, you've learned that humanity does not bow to bullies. Take your broken ship and return to your empire. Tell them what happens to anyone who threatens Earth." Zethkar stared at the human vessel in absolute terror. His mighty fleet had been annihilated by a single enemy ship. The Korthak Empire's reputation for invincibility was shattered forever. The USS Retribution had done more than win a battle. It had announced humanity's arrival as a galactic power. The destruction of the Korthak Grand Fleet sent shockwaves across their empire that traveled faster than the surviving warship could carry the news. Automated distress signals had been transmitted during the battle, brief bursts of data that reached Korthak space within hours of the engagement. Emperor Korthvash sat on his throne of Blackstone, reading the impossible reports that flooded in from monitoring stations across his domain. A single human vessel had destroyed 200 of his finest warships in less than 40 minutes. The loss represented decades of construction and the deaths of over 500,000 Korthak warriors. "This cannot be accurate," the Emperor said to his advisors. "No single ship has this kind of power." General Vexmore, commander of the Imperial military, reviewed the sensor data with growing alarm. "Your Majesty, our deep space monitors confirmed the energy signatures. The humans have weapons that operate beyond our understanding of physics." The Emperor rose from his throne, his 4 arms trembling with rage. "How did we not know about this? Our intelligence said the humans were primitives with crude chemical rockets." "They were, Majesty. These weapons appear to be completely new technology. Something has changed in their development." Across the Empire, the news spread like wildfire. The Korthak had ruled through absolute military supremacy for 3,000 years. Every subject species had submitted, because resistance seemed hopeless against their overwhelming fleets. Now that reputation lay in ruins around a small yellow star on the galaxy's rim. On the mining world of Keltar Prime, the enslaved Hevian people heard the news through secret communication networks. Their overseer, Commander Thekval, had always claimed that Korthak power was eternal and unstoppable. Now the miners whispered to each other during shift changes about the humans who had proven him wrong. "If one human ship can destroy an entire Korthak fleet," said Hevian worker Jalrin to his companions, "then maybe we can fight back too." Similar conversations were taking place on hundreds of worlds across Korthak space. Species that had been enslaved for centuries began to remember what freedom felt like. Secret resistance groups that had operated in the shadows for generations suddenly found new hope. Meanwhile, the damaged Void Render limped through space toward the nearest Korthak base. War Master Zethkar sat in his command chair staring at the empty space where his fleet had once been. His crew of 5,000 had been reduced to 3,000 survivors, and most of those were wounded or traumatized by what they had witnessed. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving priority messages from Imperial Command. They want a full report on what happened." Zethkar activated the recording system with one of his 4 hands. How could he explain the unexplainable? How could he describe watching his ships simply cease to exist? "This is War Master Zethkar reporting. On the human engagement," he began slowly. "The enemy possessed defensive and offensive capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. Their single vessel destroyed our entire fleet using weapons that deleted matter from existence. I have no other way to describe it." He paused, struggling to find words for the horror he had witnessed. "The humans showed no mercy. They could have destroyed us completely, but they left us alive to carry this message. They want the Empire to know what they are capable of." On Earth, celebrations erupted in every major city as news of the victory spread. Admiral Lisa Barnes stood in the Situation Room at Earth Defense Command, watching reports pour in from across human space. The USS Retribution was returning home, its mission accomplished beyond all expectations. Dr. Patrick Lee was already analyzing battle data transmitted from the ship. "The quantum cascade weapons performed perfectly," he told Admiral Barnes. "No system failures, no power fluctuations. The exotic matter reactors handled the load without any problems." "What about the crew?" Barnes asked. "All 50 volunteers survived. The enhancement serum worked better than our projections. They're tired and sore, but they're all alive and functional." Barnes nodded with relief. The success of Project Defiance meant humanity had a future among the stars. They were no longer helpless against alien aggression. But the real impact of the victory was being felt far from Earth. On Vorthak, a water world controlled by the Korthak Empire for 800 years, the native Aquarians began organizing their first open rebellion in centuries. Their leader, a young female named Silandra, had seen the intelligence reports about the human victory. "The Korthak are not invincible," she told her followers in their underwater city. "If humans can defeat them, so can we. Today, we begin our fight for freedom." Similar uprisings started on dozens of worlds. The Korthak Empire's iron grip on the galaxy was loosening with each passing hour. Subject species that had lived in fear for generations suddenly saw hope for liberation. Emperor Korthavash tried to contain the damage by sending his remaining fleets to crush the rebellions. But this only made things worse. Every ship he dispatched to fight rebels was one less ship available to defend core Korthak worlds. The empire that had once seemed eternal was fracturing from within. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for millennia became battlegrounds. Cargo ships carrying vital supplies to Korthak worlds were captured by rebel forces. Industrial planets stopped producing weapons and began making tools for their own liberation. The psychological effect was even more devastating than the military losses. For 3,000 years, the Korthak had projected an image of unstoppable power. Every species in the galaxy had believed that resistance was futile. The destruction of their grand fleet had shattered that carefully constructed myth. Commander Alex Stone brought the USS Retribution home to a hero's welcome. As he stepped off his ship at Luna Station, he was greeted by representatives from dozens of human colonies. The man who had saved humanity from extinction was exhausted, but proud of what his crew had accomplished. "We didn't just win a battle," he told the gathered reporters. "We announced to the galaxy that Earth will never bow to tyrants. Any species that threatens human worlds will face the same fate as the Korthak fleet." The message was clear, and it was being heard across the galaxy. Humanity had emerged as a major power, one capable of defending itself and its interests. But, more than that, they had become a symbol of hope for every oppressed species in Korthak space. The empire that had ruled through fear and intimidation for 3 millennia was discovering that their greatest weapon had been turned against them. The galaxy knew now that the mighty Korthak could be defeated, and that knowledge was spreading faster than their remaining fleets could contain it. The USS Retribution had done more than destroy enemy ships. It had destroyed the myth of Korthak invincibility, and without that myth, their empire was crumbling from within. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the Korthak Empire was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined possible. Emperor Korthvash stood in his war room, looking at a holographic map that showed rebellion after rebellion spreading across his territory like a plague. Red markers indicated worlds in open revolt, yellow showed planets where resistance movements were active, and green represented the few remaining loyal systems. There was far too much red on the map. "Your Majesty," reported General Vexmore, his voice heavy with exhaustion, "we've lost contact with the Helix sector completely. The Aquarians have declared independence and are helping other species rebel against us. Our garrison on Vorthak was overwhelmed last week." The Emperor's 4 fists clenched in rage. "How many ships do we have left?" "Operational vessels number 800 across the entire Empire, Majesty. Before the human encounter, we had over 3,000. And how many of those 800 are combat ready?" General Vexmore hesitated. "Perhaps half, Your Majesty. The others are either damaged from fighting rebels or have been recalled to defend core worlds." The numbers told a story of complete collapse. The Korthak military machine that had conquered the galaxy was now struggling to hold on to a fraction of their former territory. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were rising up with captured Korthak weapons and ships, using their former oppressors' technology against them. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Barnes was receiving very different reports. Human exploration. Ships were being welcomed with open arms by rebel groups across the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth 6 months ago were now sending diplomatic missions to request alliance and support. "The Kelvanians want us to mediate their independence talks," reported Captain Jake Morrison, who had been promoted after the victory at Sol. "The Vorthan Republic is offering us exclusive trading rights. The Crystalline Confederacy wants to share scientific research." Barnes smiled as she reviewed the flood of diplomatic offers. Humanity had gone from being an unknown species to one of the most respected powers in the galaxy almost overnight. Dr. Patrick Lee had been busy as well. His team had produced detailed blueprints for 50 more ships based on the USS Retribution design. Construction had begun at shipyards throughout human space, with the first new vessels expected to be operational within a year. "We're calling them the Defiance class," Lee told Barnes during their weekly briefing. "Each one will be capable of everything the USS Retribution accomplished, but with improved systems and better crew protection." Commander Alex Stone had been promoted to admiral and was overseeing the training of crews for the new ships. The enhancement process had been refined based on lessons learned during the battle, making it safer while maintaining its effectiveness. "We'll have enough enhanced personnel to crew all 50 ships," Stone reported. "Volunteers keep coming forward. Everyone wants to be part of defending humanity's new position in the galaxy." But humanity wasn't the only species benefiting from the Korthak collapse. On the desert world of Saktar, the native reptilians had successfully driven out their Korthak overlords using salvaged weapons and captured ships. Their leader, War Chief Drakthal, had studied human battle tactics and applied them to his own campaigns. "The humans showed us that the Korthak are not gods," he told his warriors. "They are merely bullies with advanced weapons. Take away their advantage in numbers and they fall like any other enemy." The Aquarians of Vorthak had gone even further. Led by Silandra, they had formed the Free Worlds Alliance, a growing coalition of former Korthak subject species working together for mutual defense and trade. Within months, the alliance had grown to include over 100 star systems. "The Korthak ruled us by keeping us separated and afraid," Silandra explained to Human Ambassador Kelly Wright during a diplomatic meeting. "We have learned from your example that unity and determination can overcome any oppressor." The psychological impact of humanity's victory continued to spread. Stories of the USS Retribution grew in the telling, becoming legends that inspired resistance movements throughout the galaxy. Some versions were wildly exaggerated, claiming that humanity had destroyed 1,000 Korthak ships or that human weapons could destroy entire planets with a single shot. Emperor Korthvash tried desperately to counter these stories with propaganda of his own, but few believed him anymore. The myth of Korthak invincibility had been shattered beyond repair by 37 minutes of combat near a yellow star. "We should negotiate with the humans," suggested Chancellor Morthak during a meeting of the Emperor's advisors. "Perhaps we can reach some arrangement that stops the rebellions." The Emperor's response was immediate and violent. One of his forearms swept across the table, scattering documents and data tablets. "Never. We do not negotiate with primitives. Majesty, they destroyed our grand fleet with a single ship. They are clearly not primitives." But the Emperor refused to listen. Pride and tradition bound him to the belief that the Korthak were the superior species in the galaxy. To acknowledge human equality would be to admit that 3,000 years of conquest and domination had been based on lies. This stubborn refusal to adapt sealed the Empire's fate. While Emperor Korthvash raged in his throne room, his remaining worlds continued to slip away. The Helix sector declared independence and immediately requested human protection. The mining colonies of the Outer Rim formed their own confederation and began trading directly with Earth. By the end of the first year after the Battle of Sol, the Korthak Empire had lost over 60% of its territory. The remaining 40% was plagued by constant rebellion and economic collapse. Trade routes that had operated for millennia were cut. Industrial centers that had produced Korthak weapons for centuries were either destroyed or converted to serve their new free governments. Admiral Alex Stone stood on the bridge of the USS Liberation, the second ship of the Defiance class, watching. A Liberation fleet approached the Korthak stronghold of Terval. Below on the planet, the native insectoids had risen in revolt against their oppressors, and human ships had come to support their fight for freedom. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the rebels are reporting that the Korthak garrison is surrendering. They're requesting safe passage off-world." Stone nodded. "Granted, we're not here to commit genocide. We're here to end tyranny." That had become humanity's unofficial motto in their interactions with the galaxy, ending tyranny wherever they found it. The Defiance-class ships didn't conquer worlds for human benefit. Instead, they helped other species achieve independence, and then offered friendship and trade agreements. It was a completely different approach from the Korthak method of ruling through fear and violence. Where the Empire had created enemies, humanity was making friends. Where the Korthak had enslaved, humans offered liberation. 2 years after the battle that changed everything, Captain Jake Morrison filed his final report on the state of the galaxy. He had been exploring the far rim, making contact with species that had been cut off from galactic civilization for centuries by Korthak barriers. "The Empire still exists in name," he wrote, "but it controls less than 20% of its former territory. Emperor Korthvash has retreated to the core worlds and rarely issues public statements. Most intelligence suggests he has become mentally unstable." Morrison paused in his writing, thinking about how much had changed. The galaxy is more free now than it has been in 3 millennia. Dozens of new governments have formed, most of them democratic and peaceful. Trade is flourishing between species that never had contact before. Scientific research is advancing rapidly as information flows freely. He concluded his report with a personal observation. The USS Retribution didn't just win a battle or even a war. It broke the chains that bound the galaxy to an ancient system of oppression. The Korthak Empire is beyond repair because the idea it represented, that might makes right, has been rejected by every thinking species among the stars. Humanity had done more than save itself from extinction. It had liberated an entire galaxy and shown that there was a better way to live among the stars than through conquest and fear. The age of the Korthak Empire was over, and the age of cooperation and freedom had begun.